The FBI is looking into serious threats being made across Capitol buildings in all 50 states in the U.S. right now.
And extremist groups planning on protests on Sunday. For more on that, we're going to welcome now former FBI agent, former Navy SEAL, and author of the book Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, Jonathan Gilliam.
Jonathan, welcome back to the show. Good to have you back on, sir. We appreciate it. So the House is going to be voting in just a little bit on impeaching the president for the second time in 13 months. I'll tell you what, I don't want to say that's going to incite more violence. I certainly hope that's not the case after what we saw a week ago. But I don't think it's going to help the divide, the cavernous divide in this country right now. How worried are you about these threats?
I'm not as worried about the threats in of themselves. I mean, there's a lot of angry people out there, but what I am concerned about is this instigation that's going on by the left and even many Republicans, I guess you would want to call them, out of Washington, D.C. We had AOC going on, I don't know what social media it was, but I posted the video on Twitter where she's saying that people in the red states are oppressed and they need to be liberated. I mean, the rhetoric is getting so dangerous from the left that, quite frankly, I mean, I don't know about you, but I've heard nothing myself from anybody from any of these groups, these quote-unquote extremist groups that they keep talking about. I've heard nothing about that. All I keep hearing is day in and day out rhetoric from the left and some Republicans that literally threatens people in and around the country.
Yeah,
and that doesn't happen anything.
We've seen a lot of that online. You know, Twitter even making statements saying after they removed the president's page, there were more threats being made that people started discussing online. And you saw a lot of the rhetoric that you're talking about. I want to ask you, though, about next week, because not only do we have the impeachment today, but we have the inauguration next week. And, you know, I'm seeing a lot of conversation online saying they should just do it via Zoom, do it Vegas style, you know, tell us about it later. But, you know, with the inauguration and these threats going on, what kind of preparations are going into effect?
Well, first of all, I don't want the government to do anything that we can't see ever again. So that's the first point about that. But I can guarantee you that whatever should have been done last week is probably going to be done this week. So it's going to be overkill as far as security goes, at least in Washington, D.C. And I would go as far as to recommend in all 50 states that the Capitol buildings in those states also prepare themselves for any contingencies, because, you know, from a security standpoint, you don't do what they did last Wednesday, which is wait for something to arrive and then try to plan it. So I can guarantee you what's going on in Washington, D.C., it's a national security event, right? So that means they're going to throw everything that they have in the federal government at this. And security is going to be heightened as you would see it in any other location.
Yeah.
Probably just a little bit more extreme.
They have to at this point. I think, you know, Joe Biden, this guy's run for president 3 times. The first time, 1988, so a long time ago. This is somebody that wants his moment on the west steps of the U.S. Capitol building. He wants to put his hand on the Bible. He wants that video and that photograph for posterity, for history. There's ego involved here, too. Don't forget, these are elected officials. But coronavirus also gives them a convenient out because of different social distancing requirements and mask wearing requirements. They are able to do something that's small and intimate, and they can keep people as far away as they want from the U.S. Capitol building. And certainly, you know, if Joe Biden decides to get out of his limousine and walk as they make their way to the White House, they can limit that as well.
Yeah, and I think that they should. You know, I mean, already his inauguration and all the balls that come on after that, all the different galas that they have, those things are going to be greatly affected. I don't know how they're going to pull that stuff off and live up to the hype that they've created now in the hysteria with this coronavirus. Not saying that I had COVID-19. I'm not saying it's all hype, but the fact that they have created this this hysteria of no social events whatsoever, and the Democrats are the ones leading that. I'm very eager to see how they're going to do that. Now, when it comes to the security and getting out and walking down the road, I just think that there's so much going on in Washington, D.C. right now that anything they do that is normal is going to be a risk.
And you say no social events. You know, we saw that a lot throughout the year. No social events unless you're protesting. No social events unless you're celebrating the presidency.
Right.
There was a lot of exceptions in that. You know, talking about mask wearing, the Capitol investigation, widening that massive nationwide manhunt. You know, is last week's breach harder? Will it be harder in the future because of people wearing masks?
Yeah, well, you can't catch the virus if you're protesting. Or if you're celebrating Joe Biden's win, or if you're spending a month occupying the streets of Portland. You can't get the virus. They proved that. That's been proved. I'm kidding.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting when you say that, because in all the states where they've put people in elderly clinics that have COVID, you've seen the death rate go sky high. But in the places where that didn't happen, their death rate is quite a bit lower. Yeah, the virus is up and it is increasing, but that's because the testing and because the viruses, that's what viruses do. They get more contagious and less dangerous. So this whole entire thing, this 2021, we are now 13 days into 2021, and it has already eclipsed 2020 in chaos, violence, and rhetoric.
Yeah. Now, you know, it's interesting. I'm reading an article by Glenn Greenwald, who generally, sort of leans to the left. He wrote an article for the Daily Mail, and I bring this up because now that we're a week removed from those riots that we saw in the Capitol, which were really difficult to watch, and tragic and deadly now, we know, more and more videos are coming out, and we're seeing what happened. And with Parler being just taken down, they're now suing Amazon and conservative voices being silenced. Greenwald talks about Facebook as a place that people use a lot more often to coordinate things like this, which is fascinating as more and more of these videos have come out, and we're seeing more of how ugly and tragic this really was. What's your concern level with conservative voices being silenced, and Twitter in particular silencing all voices, but only the ones on the right?
Right. It's a complete double standard. And, to my knowledge, nobody ever murdered anybody live on Parler. And that's been done many times on Facebook. And, these hackers that they call it scraping, where they've gone on to the hard drives where Parler had stored this information, and they've taken these pictures and got the data locations for January 6th to see where people were in Washington, D.C., and they have all these plotted locations. But nobody's done that for Twitter or Facebook, because I guarantee you that it would eclipse the number of people that were at the Capitol building that were on Parler. So this is all a farce that they're doing, and the left better wise up, because if they think this isn't going to backfire on them, that eventually they won't be censored themselves, they're absolutely wrong. You can't go this far down the censorship trail to where it's not going to backfire on the people who vote these individuals in office that create these oppressive types of laws and these businesses that take part in government activity.
Concerning times for sure. All right, Jonathan, Gilliam, thank you so much for joining us. It's all we have time for now.